Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Chastity. We read a lot of books, we do a lot of things. It's kind of the whole shtick. I have been unwell. I was sick this week. I've had a dental procedure twice a week, all month long. I have cried more than I think my body can physically handle at this point. And so I'm tired and I haven't read anything this week. Zilch, nada, absolutely nothing. That being said, I don't want to leave you guys without a video. So I was racking my brain. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And it came to me. Ask ChatGPT. So that's exactly what I did. I did a little research. I said, what's a good idea? And you know what? It was super helpful. I don't think that I've seen anybody else do this, so if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments. But today we are going to be doing a bookish Would You Rather. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the concept of Would You Rather, we used to play it when I was in like high school and junior high. Would you rather lay in a bed with snakes or have an ant live in your ear? Wild things like that that are supposed to be almost like impossible to answer, but everybody has like the one thing that they're like, well, I would rather do that than I do that. You know what I mean? So today is all about books and the bookish community. And to help me out, I have my little jar here full of Would You Rathers that we're gonna pull from and go through and answer and see what I would rather. If you want to play along, feel free to leave your answers in the comments of what you would rather do, or if you have any would you rather suggestions, if we want to do this again, go ahead and leave those in the comments as well. So without further ado, I say we get started. Would you rather be able to time travel and live through a historical event in a book, or be transported into a fictional world of your favorite fantasy novel? As an avid fantasy reader and an anti-historical fiction reader, I'm sorry, I just haven't found a ton that I can feel fully invested in. I think I would rather go into the fantasy world of one of my favorite series or novels, which would mean I was either in Throne of Glass or Harry Potter, both of which seemed chef's kiss to me. But I also have a very specific thought that I was placed in this time period, this timeline, these historical events for a reason. And I don't think I would have the gumption to survive previous historical events. So yeah, I think I would prefer to be in my favorite fantasy timeline. Because could you imagine getting your letter to Hogwarts? We've all dreamt it. Getting our letter to Hogwarts, getting on that train, going and meeting Hagrid and being sorted into a house. I'm a Slytherin, just so you know. I don't think I would give that up. I think I would prefer to go into my favorite fantasy novel or fantasy series. Would you rather have an unlimited supply of new releases but no backlist, or only be able to read books that are at least 5 years old? You know, I don't have a qualm about older books. I love some older books. I'm not a big classics girly. Those aren't my favorite. But Animal Farm or To Kill a Mockingbird, Catcher in the Rye, things like that, super down for it, love. But I think at the end of the day, I would rather have an unlimited supply of new releases. Some of the newer books that have come out are superb. Love them. I will say some of them are not great. They haven't been my favorite, and some feel very copy and paste, especially with the introduction of a lot of indie authors on TikTok. I think some of them are a little overhyped. But I have found newer books and newer releases and even newer authors to be some of my go-tos, and they've made it onto my must-read lists. So yeah, I think I would prefer to have like no backlist and all new releases instead of only being able to read books that are at least 5 years old. Granted, I would get to those books that are like new releases at some point, but then I would kind of be behind the curve and I would just be behind all of my reader friends that have already read it. You know what I mean? Would you rather be able to read any book instantly by just thinking about it, or have to physically read each book but get to fully absorb every detail? I would much rather read every book. I think by just thinking about it and knowing the book, like if I thought of the title, what's one that's next to me? Sorcery of Thorns. I haven't read that book, but if I thought of that book and decided I wanted to read it and then it was just downloaded into my brain, I feel like you miss out on the experience of walking through the story with the characters and fully, like, I think by walking through the story, you fully absorb it. Does that make sense? Like, yes, you might miss a detail here or a detail here, but I think that's why the book community is so fun, because you can go, did you remember this thing? Because I've had friends who have read books with me and go, hey, did you catch it? And I was like, no, I didn't catch it. And then we got to have a conversation. But I think by just like downloading it into your memory or into your consciousness, you miss out on the experience. And I think that's what books are for, is the experience of them. So I wouldn't trade that. I would much rather sit and read even if that meant that I had to read every book physically, like with a book, no e-reader, no audiobooks. Like, I would prefer that than to just think of a title and it be downloaded into my brain. I think that takes the fun out of what reading is supposed to be, in my very humble opinion. Would you rather read a book where the main character is a villain or one where the hero is secretly evil? That is what I'm talking about. That one is harder to answer because I love a villain. Don't get me wrong. I love a villain. I think villains are so complex. Sometimes heroes can kind of fall flat in their like hero mindset. But I think one where a hero is secretly evil would be really fun. I think that's a fun concept. Following this, because I heard someone say recently that no one thinks that they're on the wrong side. Even people who we think are evil or villainous think that they are doing what's right, that they are on the side of good. Even if we know morally that's not true. So I think to follow a hero who's like doing good, saving people, like the hero things, and then to find out that they're actually evil puts into perspective of everyone thinks what they're doing is right. But also that same thing could be said about a book where you follow the villain, unless the villain knows that they're evil and doing things out of malice. I don't have a readily available answer for this one. You know, I think I would rather read it where the hero is secretly evil, because I think that twist and that betrayal is a fun like idea. I think I would prefer that than knowing from the beginning that they're evil. Yeah. Would you rather have to reread the same book every year for the rest of your life, or never be able to reread a book ever again? I think I would rather reread the same book every year. Well, hold on. I feel like this one comes with a caveat, because am I allowed to reread other books, or is that the only book I'm ever allowed to reread? Because if that's the case, no thank you. Because I like to reread books. I have reread Harry Potter, I've reread Fifth Wave, I have reread The K. Like, there are some books that I really enjoy going back to, but if I only get to pick one for the rest of my life and that's the only book that I can reread, I think that would be devastating. But also, to never be able to reread a book again, only ever read new. Sometimes you just need that like comfort character, that book you've already read, you know what's gonna happen, and you know what emotions it will elicit, and you can find comfort in the knowing of what's gonna happen. I think I would rather reread the same book every year, because then I would just make it a tradition and everybody would know that the first week of January, Chastity reread whatever book. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's what I would rather do. Would you rather read only one genre for the rest of your life or read every genre except your favorite? I feel a little speechless on this one because I don't know an answer. Because I love to read other things. I love thrillers. I love horror. I love fantasy. I love romance. I love mysteries and whodunits. Not a big historical fiction girly, but I love contemporary and literary fiction. I have read a couple of biographies. I really enjoyed those. I like a lot of different genres. So for me to pick a favorite would be difficult, but I would almost have to say like fantasy, dystopian, like those action-y kind of vibes. So to never be able to read a fantasy novel again would be devastating. So I guess my answer would be I would only read one genre for the rest of my life. And that is because it's a little bit of a cheat, but with fantasy novels, you can get a little bit of everything. In fantasy novels, you can have horror, you can have psychological like warfare. In fantasy novels, you can have mystery, like who did it, and that like questioning reality. You can have romance. You can have historical fiction in fantasy novels. Like, I feel like fantasy kind of encapsulates all genres a little bit with the overarching magic. So, I mean, I think I would choose to read one genre and it would probably be fantasy. Is that a cheat? Did I cheat? Because I feel like that's fine. Would you rather read only standalones or only read series? I think I would rather only read series, because as much as I like a standalone, sometimes you like to have something that's concise and this is the story and this is all that it is. But I also really enjoy taking my time and building up characters and these well-rounded individuals and this deep, rich storyline. A lot of those are fantasy, I'm not gonna lie. Listen, I can't make the rules about writing, but I mean, like Harry Potter, if he killed Voldemort in the very first book, I don't think that it would be this national phenomenon where people host baby showers that are Harry Potter themed, and people in their 40s are still going to the Wizarding World experience because they want to get their wand at Ollivanders, which is a dream. I think series are just better than standalones in my personal opinion, because you get more time to build this concept and this idea, and you get people like involved and ingrained in the story, and they care, at least me, I care about the people and I care about what's gonna happen, and when it comes to an end, a lot of times I'm sad to see it go. So I would rather read only series than read only standalones. Would you rather only read books with unhappy endings or only books with happy endings? I think I'm gonna go with the like generic cliche answer and say happy endings, because every once in a while a sad ending is refreshing, but I would rather know that everybody lived happily ever after and evil was vanquished and the ghost was exorcised and the killer's behind bars. I would rather have a happy ending than a sad one or an unhappy ending. Would you rather be friends with the villain of a book or be in a love triangle with two protagonists? I would rather be friends with the villain. I'm just gonna say it, I'm not a big fan of love triangles. to tell you, here's the thing. When I feel like I talked about this in my last vlog. If I didn't, I know I talked about it while I was filming, so that's why it's in my brain. I would rather be friends with a villain because one, they're just misunderstood. Everybody deserves a friend. Two, I don't care for love triangles. As an adult woman, love triangles make me frustrated. When I was in high school or junior high, or even in my very early 20s, love triangles were exciting and a fun thought, and like how two people love me unconditionally. Two people want me. I'm just that popular. Not anymore. I'm good. I think that came from the fact that I didn't date a lot in my younger years, and I craved that like romantic love so badly for a long, long time that the thought of two men loving me and me having to pick between the two was really exciting for my little underdeveloped brain. But as I've gotten older and understand love a little bit better, because I'm never gonna say that I understand love in its entirety. It's too big of an emotion. I don't like to hurt people, so at no point would I find enjoyment in picking between two people to love me. That feels icky to me. But two, I find my person and I love so deeply and so hard, I can't imagine another person being involved. It feels almost treacherous or like a betrayal in some sense, and it makes me feel gross. So, love triangles are just not my thing. Even when I read them in books now, like YAs or things like that, I see a love triangle coming and I'm like, la, I don't, la. It's no longer a thing that I enjoy. It just makes me anxious and frustrated. Like, I know who I want you to pick, so pick the person that I want you to pick, because that person's obviously better. But also, I have always been the girl who was in love with the villain. I had a crush on Draco Malfoy. Listen, okay? It's just, I don't know what to tell you. I've always been a fan of the villain. I think a lot of times the villain is misunderstood. They're hurt people. There's a depth to it. I would rather be friends with the villain. What does that say about me as a person? Oh no. Would you rather never read a book with a romance again or read only books that are entirely romance? I would rather read a book that had no romance in it. I love romance. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. I love a good romance. But at the end of the day, I would rather read a book that like they were slaying monsters and killing demons and overcoming adversity. Overcoming adversity. Oh God. I would rather have a book where they were overcoming some kind of adversity than a romance. Ugh. I think romance adds so much like fun to a story, but at the end of the day, I would rather go with Sam to Mount Mordor or go with Aelin Galathinius to battle or take on the Blood Right with Nesta than I care about a romance. Ugh. Sorry. Would you rather have a book that makes you laugh until you cry or a book that makes you cry until you laugh? You know, I've experienced a book that made me cry until I laughed. It's written by Rebecca Yarros. It's called The Last Letter. I sobbed like an idiot. Sitting on the couch and my baby sister was like, please stop reading, you are unwell. And I said, I can't, it's so good. I've had that where I cried so hard I had to laugh at myself. I've never had a book that made me laugh so hard I cried. I've definitely read books that made me laugh and laugh out loud, but I think I would rather have a book that made me cry until I laughed. Which I understand is a contradiction to my I would rather have happy endings than sad endings. I get that. But I think you can have a book that makes you cry until you laugh and still have a happy ending. Because I like a book that invokes all of the emotions. I want to feel all the things. So I read. Let's do a couple more. Because I'm having a great time. Listen. Would you rather only be able to read books with slow burn plots or only books with a fast-paced plot? Fast-paced plot. There is nothing worse to me than a book that has a slow start. I want to just jump in, you know? I understand that sometimes you have to get the information and you have to like learn where you are and understand the magic system or understand the mystery. Like I understand, I could get it. But sometimes authors be dragging it out and it takes too long and then I lose interest. I love a book where I just jump right in and start swimming. I love a book where you are just in it from step one and you're like, heck yes, love it, love it. I would much rather have a fast-paced book than a slow burn book. That's all I'm saying. That's all I gotta say about that one. Would you rather only be able to read books written in the last 100 years or only read books written before 1920? I would rather only read books written in the last 100 years. I have a very hard time with classics, unfortunately. They're not my favorite thing. I have a hard time reading classics. I want to be a classics girly. I want to be a girl who reads classics. I would love to read The Picture of Dorian Gray. I would love to read The Picture of Dorian Gray. I started it once and didn't make it 3 pages. I would love to read The Odyssey. Started it, made it about 85 pages in, and bowed out because my brain it was almost like it was too like high knowledge. It was too high of a thought and I was having a hard time. It takes a lot more brain power to read a classic. I would rather read a book written within the last 100 years. And I'm not saying there aren't books before the 1920s that are probably really good. I don't know. They're just not my cup of tea. This is coffee. Would you rather always be 100 pages into a book that you're loving but never finish, or have to read a book you hate all the way through? I would rather read a book that I hated from start to finish. To say that I don't like to DNF books. It makes my heart hurt. But to be 100 pages into a book that I love and then to never know the ending sounds devastating to me. That sounds awful. I hate that. That idea hurts my brain. I don't like it. No, thank you. I would rather just read a book that I hate. Actually, I did. Oh, I don't have it anymore. I read Escape Room. It's the only book I've ever given 1 star. I hated it, but I read the whole thing because I don't like to DNF books. I would rather read a book that I hated than get 100 pages into an incredible book and then have to walk away. That sounds like hell. Sounds like absolute hell. Would you rather have the ability to talk to fictional characters but never have a conversation with a real person, or live in complete silence but be able to read every book ever written? I feel like either one of those is a bad choice for me. Let me explain. I love to talk. You can ask any person that I work with and spend 10 hours a day with. I talk from the moment I get to work till the moment I leave. I come home and my poor boyfriend, I talk to him until we go to sleep. I talk. Me right now, this whole video is me talking. That's it. I love to talk. So both of these options sound kind of awful because for one, you're telling me that I can never talk to my mom or my dad again. I talk to my mom and dad more than I talk to anyone else on this planet. I call them once a day at minimum. Sometimes more. You're telling me I can never talk to my boyfriend again. but I can read every book ever written. I think by default, I have to go with I could talk to fictional characters. For one, how fun would that be? To talk to a fictional character? To like hear the story from their mouth? Because you know it has to be so funny. Like, I feel like it would be a lot more no ways than when you read. But also, not being able to talk to the people that I love sounds awful and devastating, but I could not live in silence. I simply couldn't. I would rather talk to fictional characters than not talk at all. I don't think I have the capacity for silence. I've been told my whole life that I needed a volume button because I'm too loud. What makes you think I can live and not speak at all? That's a joke. Would you rather have every book you read be made into a movie or never have any of the books you love adapted? That's a little harder to answer because I've had some of my favorite books turned into movies, and often they do really well. They do. But I know that there's some people who have had their books turned into movies that they did not like the way that it went. They didn't like the end product of the movie. They felt it to be untrue to the book. But also to never have any of the books that I love ever turned into a movie, that thought makes me kind of sad. Just because there are some people who will never read a book, but they'll watch a movie. And you mean to tell me? I've never read Lord of the Rings. Let me be very clear. I've never read Lord of the Rings. I want to. I just have not made that a priority. But I love the Lord of the Rings movies. I feel like I would rather have every book that I read turned into a movie than to have none of the books that I love be turned into a movie. Because I'm still waiting on the Throne of Glass movie. I think that would be so fun. I'm being so for real. I think that would be such a blast. What else? Let me see. I would love to see Field of Blood by Eric Wilson turned into a movie. What else do I have on my little shelf? That's all Harry Potter. Half Sick of Shadows was awful. But here's the thing, like Half Sick of Shadows, hated that book. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like Half Sick of Shadows. But if it was a movie, I would eat that up. I think it would be a good movie. I think it's a bad book. Personal opinion. So yeah, I would rather have every book that I read be turned into a movie than none of the books that I read be turned into a movie. I think that makes more sense to me. Would you rather be able to meet any author from history or be in one of your favorite books? I think I would rather be in one of my favorite books. Do I think I would survive long? Probably not. But I am almost afraid to meet any authors that I really enjoy, because I read about meeting an author one time in not Looking for Alaska, in The Fault in Our Stars. They had that like scene where she meets her favorite author and he's kind of a jerk and he kind of sucks. And I'm like afraid to meet my favorite authors because I'm afraid that they won't live up to the expectation in my mind and not be the people who I think that they are. Now, if I could meet any author from history, I think I would want to meet George Orwell. I would love to like pick his brain and ask him questions and talk about the books that he wrote and kind of like dive a little bit deeper into his brain about like Animal Farm in 1984. I think that would be a lot of fun. But as a whole, overall, I think I would rather go into one of my favorite books. Which book, you might ask? Harry Potter. 100% Harry Potter. Ooh, you know, yeah, I would die in Fourth Wing. I would fall off the parapet, die in Fourth Wing. But I think I could kind of kill it in Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Or maybe even potions. Might be good. I liked science when I was in school. I might be good at potions. I also like to cook, and it's basically just a recipe. Would you rather live in the world of your favorite book, but be a background character, or live in a world you hate, but be the main character? Ooh, that's hard. Because for one, I could go into ACOTAR. Specifically book 5 after everything happens, because I want to be friends with Nesta so bad. I would love to be friends with Nesta. I am a Nesta girly, which is a different conversation. Don't come for me, because I know plenty of people hate Nesta. I am not one of them. I understand Nesta on a deep emotional level. Not the point of this question. I think I'm gonna say a really sad thing. I think I'm already the main character in a story I hate. Now, I'm working very hard to change that. But my job specifically right now is draining the life out of my soul. And so I think I'm already kind of the main character of a story that's not my favorite, but I'm working very hard to make it my favorite story, which is why I do this and why I film bands on the weekends and work with creative people and why I have applied for a promotion. But like, I don't want to be a background character, whether it's in a fictional story or in my own story. I would rather be the main character. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. But at the end of the day, I think that I would rather be a main character than ever be somebody's background. Just my thoughts, just my 2 cents. Would you rather have a book where the protagonist is an unreliable narrator or one where the story is told from multiple points of view with little or no overlap? I think I would rather have an unreliable narrator. I think unreliable narrators are so fun. They're so much fun. Think of a story. Not even a book. A story someone at work or in school or at the gym told you. And they told you the story and you're like, wow, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. And then you find out the other point of view. And it was like, that is not what I heard. I think an unreliable narrator is kind of fun in the fictional sense. When people are acting crazy in real life, I'm not a big fan. But like in a fictional sense, I think an unreliable narrator is a lot of fun. My question becomes, do we find out that they're an unreliable narrator at any point of the story? Or do we just take their word for gospel and we go through this book thinking that the villain is bad when in reality, that's just the book from the villains. Like, that's just reading the book where the villain's the main character. See, you gotta big brain it. I think an unreliable narrator is a fun time. There's only 4 left. I've gone through my entire bucket. So I say we do the last 4 and then we can call it. But I'm having so much fun. This is actually a blast. I kind of want to do this again, I think. If you like this and you want to see me do another Would You Rather book edition, please like this video because this is actually kind of a lot of fun. Would you rather never be able to read a book with a plot twist again or only read books that are entirely plot twists? I would rather read a book where it is entirely plot twists than never get a plot twist again. I don't have fun in books that are too predictable. I want a twist ending or that's my brother or I'm not really dead. Like, I love a good twist. I love a good twist. To think about reading a book that does not have a surprise at all, ever, devastating. Devastating. I would much rather read a book where something unexpected happens because I think it keeps you on your toes and that's what makes it fun. If you read a book that's too predictable and you guess it from the beginning, are you actually enjoying the book? I think part of the fun of reading is the experience and the excitement and the what ifs. And I think that having plot twists as a literary concept are so good. I think you almost need a twist so your readers aren't bored. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. Would you rather live in a dystopian world that's action-packed but dangerous or a peaceful world with no conflict but no excitement? I am no stranger to conflict. I do not shy away from conflict. I don't seek conflict out because that's psychotic, but I would rather live in a dystopian world that is action-packed and dangerous than a world where everything is peaceful and there's no conflict, because that's kind of boring. Like, I understand that's the concept of utopia with no conflict, no war, no bad thing, but I think you need conflict to grow and to get and be better as people. It's that concept of iron sharpens iron. You need a little bit of conflict. You need somebody to push you even when it's uncomfortable. You need somebody and something in your life that makes it hard. Somebody said this to me literally today, that your faith is grown and you are tested in adversity. You are made stronger in adversity. And I agree with that. And so I would rather live in a dangerous, action-packed world where there is ability for growth and for forging a stronger person and a more well-rounded person than a world where there is no conflict, there is no growth, and people are stagnant under the guise of peacefulness. I feel like some of these are getting a little too real, and this is supposed to be a fun little lighthearted video. Ooh, sorry, not sorry. Would you rather only ever read books with beautiful covers and terrible stories, or only read books with ugly covers but incredible stories? That is hard only because I am the definition of judge a book by its cover. If I'm not intrigued by the cover, I won't pick the book up. Ooh, so sorry. But I've read books that have intriguing covers that were bad, and I was mad about it. I would rather have an incredible story and an ugly cover than a beautiful, like, trophy for my shelf and an awful story. I would rather have a good story and a good experience. My battery's about to die. Time out. I'm gonna be so for real, I don't even remember what we were talking about. Oh, beautiful covers. Yeah. I would rather have a ugly cover and a beautiful story. Because again, I think that gets down into the root of I would rather go on an incredible adventure than just have something pretty to put on my shelf behind me. Granted, I love my shelves. I love my beautiful books. These up here above me are all like special edition, collector's edition, sprayed edges. They're beautiful. I would rather than be just a black and white cover with some words printed on it and still have an incredible story. Perfect example. Perfect example. Quicksilver. I listened to Quicksilver this year. 5 stars. Loved it. Amazing story. The cover, not my favorite. It's not my favorite. I wouldn't really buy it based on the cover, but the story itself, chef's kiss, incredible. Cannot wait until November when the second one comes out. I will be reading it. Perfect example, in my opinion. Is it still a fun cover? Yes. Is it my favorite? No. Okay guys, this is the last one. This is the last Would You Rather. Hopefully it's a good one. I don't remember what oh, it's a long one. Would you rather have a signed copy of every book you own or get an exclusive edition of your favorite book that no one else can ever own? I would rather have an exclusive edition that is just mine than have a signed copy of every book. There's a couple of books that I have that are signed that I do really appreciate. I do treasure them. They are very special. But if every book that I owned was a signed copy, I don't think that they would be special. I think it would just be the norm. But to have an exclusive edition of a book that is just mine, that no one will ever own until I'm dead, that would be one of my prized possessions, and it would be hung on the wall in plexiglass, okay? Like, that would be so incredible to me. Whereas if every book was signed, every book is signed. Less special to me. It's almost like having every book be a special edition or like a collector's edition or whatever. I think it takes away from some of the novelty and the thing that makes it special. Does that make sense? I hope that made sense. I'm not sure. But that has been Bookish Would You Rather with Chastity. I had a really great time. I would love to do this again. So if you have any suggestions for Would You Rathers, you can put those in the comments. You can DM me. I would love to hear them. If you want to answer any of the Would You Rathers, like leave that in the comments. I think this is such a fun concept. Again, I have not seen anybody do this before, but if they have, please, by all means, correct me. But I genuinely would like to do this again. I think it was so fun. But if you guys haven't already, you should go ahead and subscribe. Join my little book club. If you hit the little bell icon, you'll be notified every time that I post, usually on Saturdays at noon. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the like button. That was a lot of likes all in one sentence. But all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you really enjoyed it, and I will see you in the acknowledgements. Bye!